And welcome back, everybody, to the podcast. Still working on that title.
I think we might as well just call it the podcast now. We don't want to confuse our 7 viewers.
Yeah, I think that's what I call it. Yeah. Well, we got to get the PR push out. We haven't gotten the PR push yet. Yeah. We need the graphics, the medias. We need to get the medias all settled.
Yeah, that's right.
Carter here, back as your host, and for a special this week, co-host Nick.
I was here last week. I hope this isn't a special thing. I hope that I'm invited back regularly.
The joke was that even though you're here, I was going to say you were a special host. You ruined it. All right, boop, bop, bop, bop. Let's get the ball rolling. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing well.
All right. Yeah.
And yourself?
Slightly on edge. My internet went out Sunday halfway through a live stream of E3. So I've had to try to watch all of it on my phone. My data plan's going to be through the roof. And I call Verizon. Is it Verizon? I don't know. I call a company. I don't want to call anyone out. So I call the company. They're running me through this whole thing. And I ask, is this a community-wide thing? And they're like, no way. Today, I see some Verizon cards. They said they weren't going to be able to come till Wednesday. And I'm like, oh, God. But then I see a whole bunch of cars out by the neighbor's house. Turns out it was a community thing. One of my neighbors stabbed their mailbox through one of the wires and shut the whole thing down.
What?
Yeah, straight up.
Stabbed a mailbox through the wire?
I guess they got
How is that even... Wait a minute. If you're making wires that can be stabbed through by mailboxes, like you're making flimsy wires at best.
Yeah. Well, it's a pointy. You gotta have something that can just jab into the ground.
Are we talking like a wooden mailbox or a metal?
Metal.
Okay, well that's more reasonable. But still...
Yeah, I know. I thought the same thing.
Who's putting their mailbox near the wire, or vice versa? Who's putting the wire near the mailbox?
Well, when the Russians paradrop into suburbia, a la Red Dawn, you're going to need a weapon, and what better weapon than just stabbing someone through the chest with a mailbox?
That's intimidating.
Yeah, no one's going to F with a crazy person.
No,
is using a mailbox as a weapon?
Nope, no sir.
Yeah, so that's been mildly annoying. I have managed for the most part to keep up, and we'll talk about that as we go along.
Yeah, and my internet now, it came back, and my internet's down.
Yeah.
They had people working out, the box for the internet and the television and the phone is in the woods in the back of my house.
Yeah.
And the other day,
Nick sort of lives in the wilderness.
As
wilderness as you can get for suburbia.
I don't live in the wilderness, but
pretty close for suburbia.
They were out here this past week trying to fix it. They were driving like a utility vehicle back behind our house, like running a new cable through the box.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he lives in as close to wilderness as you can get while still being classified as suburbia. Let's put it that way. All right, so let's get the ball rolling. I think we're going to start this week with the NBA Finals. I honestly didn't think we were going to have to talk about it because I assumed the Cavaliers would have already been out of it by now. But LeBron gets angry sometimes. And when he gets angry, he drops 40.
41.
41, thank you. And when Kyrie Irving also drops 40, mathematically, you're probably going to win.
Yeah, you have 2 players accounting for 82 points in a total game. It doesn't matter. I believe it was Jalen Rose saying at halftime, "Oh, the Warriors! That look at how even with Draymond out, Klay Thompson's stepping up, Iguodala's stepping up, well, and who else was it? Barnes and Livingston." And I was like, "Yeah, but like there seemed to be something you could tell." I was like, "I agree."
I was pretty.
But you could see, like LeBron was on LeBron and Kyrie. Everyone was talking about LeBron, but I think Kyrie in particular.
I honestly felt more people are talking about Kyrie.
Oh, really?
During the commentary, it's always like a historic game for Kyrie. And I guess for one hand, it's like this is the first time he's really done something like this.
Yeah, that's true.
But I will say, well, one, I was really worried because I'm like, they just keep making threes, and it's like you're going to keep trading twos for threes, and this is not going to end well. But then they just start missing the threes. I'm like, okay, there's no way the LeBron haters can say anything about this game.
No.
What do you know? People on ESPN, not just Philadelphia, it's not Philadelphia radio, because it's like, well, the average fan is going to be salty all the time. That's how it works. Fandom is inherently salty. You can't be a fan of anything without having at least 80% salt in your body. The rest is misery.
No water.
No water.
That's not essential at all.
Yeah. It's weird science, but no, people start going like now, oh, they only had 5 assists between the two, and I'm like,
listen though, but this is the other thing that I was going to get to is that Jalen Rose, or maybe it wasn't Jalen Rose, maybe it was the play-by-play crew when they came down to the floor right before the second half started.
yeah,
They said LeBron had 0 assists in the first half. You know what? As a certified LeBron, I'm not a LeBron James hater. He's not my
We've
favorite.
thought about this,
He's not
but
my
I don't
favorite,
think you are.
But I'm not the biggest fan of
We've
LeBron
gotten to
James.
shouting matches about this, but I don't think you're.
We can agree on that. But 0 assists for LeBron James, as we can see now in hindsight, is exactly what the Cavaliers needed to get the victory last night. They didn't need LeBron James trying to distribute the ball. They just needed him to attack the basket, and that's exactly what he did. He had 41 points, although to be fair, also, making me eat my own words, did fairly well from behind the arc as well last night,
good.
which I personally think he should shy away from because he's so big, he's just
There was a point where I was just
dominant
laughing
force.
at how many shots they made in a row because it's just like, how do you stop that?
Well, I think I was watching, it was in the late third quarter or in the fourth. Kyrie Irving had like 9 or 11 straight points in like a minute span or something like that.
That's when I just started cracking up because I'm like, what do you even say? What can you even analyze?
And they weren't
there?
easy shots. He was hitting turnaround jumpers. He was getting contact and the foul. Kyrie Irving, when he shows up, we were here sitting in these chairs last week talking about the 10-point performance that Kyrie Irving had in Game 2.
I forgot
10 points. And Kyrie Irving, as we can see, is so much better than that. When Kyrie Irving is healthy and when he's on, he can get going. Watch out for Uncle Drew, man. Uncle Drew's coming to get you.
Uncle Drew, Jesus Christmas. Oh, yeah. And honestly, I mean, I don't know. Mostly, I'm just fascinated by the excuses people are making regarding LeBron. Like, I just want to celebrate because I'm like, you know what? Even if you guys end up losing this, you fought really, really hard to at least get it back to Cleveland.
Well, they
get it back to Cleveland.
Hard to get back to Cleveland. I think that you would agree with me.
A lot of poop is in the bed.
Their effort was pretty minimal up until this point.
The majority of the bed is filled with poop. But you know what? When pushed backed against a corner, they stepped up.
Yeah, and they did. And LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, as we mentioned, both 41-point efforts. And people were talking about Kevin Love last night. He had 2 points in 32 minutes of play.
What?
Which it's distressing, but it's pretty clear.
He just doesn't look like he wants to be in the offense. He just hides in the corner. Like, don't pass the ball.
And don't get me wrong, Kevin Love needs to be involved in order for this Cleveland Cavaliers team to have any shot to be the first team ever to come back from a 3-1 deficit in the NBA Finals. But if you've got LeBron James and Kyrie Irving dropping 41,
yeah, I mean,
it's going to be pretty tough to beat the Cavs.
But it's scary because both of them have to rest for a while. There was one point where someone was talking like, hey, who do you choose between as your backup point guard for the B team? Dellavedova or Mo Williams? And I'm just like, neither.
Well, but you have to remember that
there was a point where
Dellavedova did well, especially in last year's finals, when he had to play a bigger role with Love and Irving out. He had played great defensively, especially on Steph Curry. People praised him for his defense on Steph Curry. And he's come in a few moments this series.
There was a point when LeBron passed the ball to Shumpert, and Shumpert tried to dribble around and shoot, where I'm just like, what the F are you doing? Why did you pass it to him?
Yeah, well, first of all,
there's just so many liabilities on the team. It's scary.
Doesn't Iman Shumpert deserve a flagrant foul just for his hairdo?
Yeah.
What? Look, what are you doing? If he had, I was okay with the high flat top.
Yeah, that
looked kind of old school, classic.
It was retro.
And now it's like shaved.
A man
and
bun.
It's like
he has a man bun. No one should have a man bun, especially a professional athlete.
But the rest of his head is shaved.
I know, and it makes it worse. How did you figure out to make the worst haircut ever inexplicably worse?
Oh no! It's just awful.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awful.
The only other note I have, for some reason, I'm obsessing about LeBron haters now. But you know what? I've come to realize, especially in the wake of people sort of turning on Stephen Curry. And to be fair, I have my gripes with the guy, but I can appreciate that he's a very good player. Bulls fans of the Jordan era are some of the most insecure fans on the entire planet. Okay, let's just say, hypothetically, regardless of what scenario happens in this finals, the Warriors end up winning and have statistically the best season in NBA history. Or LeBron does the impossible and ends up winning his third finals and then goes on to win maybe one or two more. Regardless of what happens, at the end of all of this, if you were to, 30 years from now, if you were to still say, I personally think Michael Jordan's Bulls were the best team, or I think Michael Jordan was the best player, no one's going to question you.
Well,
they will, even if LeBron ends up winning 10 championships, they will accept that
listen,
as
I
idea.
agree that people are going to debate for the rest of time if whether it's Michael Jordan or LeBron James or whoever else may come along that we don't even know about yet. That can be debated no matter what happens with the rest of LeBron's career.
Whoever the next Dos Equis most interesting man in the world is, he might be a great basketball player. We don't know.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
He'd probably play basketball instead of being a Dos Equis man. But I like that. That's the kind of thinking that we need. But here's where I have
reinventing the wheel here.
Here's where I have a problem with your statement. I think that it's pretty difficult at this point, and you know how I stand on the Michael Jordan, LeBron James end of the spectrum.
Yes.
I don't think that there's a whole lot of a case for the Bulls of 1995, 1996 Bulls.
Yeah.
To make a case for the best team ever anymore, especially if the Warriors win the championship.
I mean,
how can it's almost inconceivable. And I'm a big Michael Jordan fan. I think that Michael Jordan is, and probably he was, the best player of all time, still is, in my opinion. But the team as a whole, what the Warriors have accomplished,
unless they lose the championship,
but
in a historic fashion,
it's so tough because if they lose, they'll be remembered for losing in historic fashion.
Yeah, no one cares about the undefeated Patriots anymore.
You know what? That's a good point. But what they've done is so incredible. To think about it, they played basketball from October until June, and they've
almost
July, and they've lost
what 8?
No, they lost
a little more than that.
No, they lost 10 in the regular.
Oh, right.
They lost 10 in the regular season,
and then they were undefeated in the first couple rounds, right? Up until the
and they lost 3 to OKC, and so they lost 14 games since October. 14 games.
Wait, no, 15.
15?
Yeah, the Cavs have 2.
Oh, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, still,
15 games since October.
I mean, no, I absolutely agree. It's getting progressively harder.
It's going to be
But at the same time,
tough.
there is a large percent of the population who will,
and you're right,
even if they don't agree with you, would respect your opinion as, yes, they are arguably one of the 3 or 4 best teams.
And
this isn't a zero-sum game where it's like, oh, we can only have one great team.
Right.
We're going to have to storm we're going to have to storm the NBA Hall of Fame and just pour gasoline over all the Bulls stuff we have in there.
And isn't that the beauty of sports?
Yeah,
is the debate. It is the debate that you have with other people and the different perspectives that different individuals see sports.
It's just such an interesting cultural thing, though. Is it nostalgia? Is it the marketing around Jordan? Is everyone just forgotten to take their joy pills lately? What is it? I don't know. It's just fascinating to me. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other. I just find it. Then again, as a Bills fan, I have my fair share of emotional quirks. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. Mostly a inflated sense of defeatism and chronic depression. All right. Have anything to add?
About basketball?
Yeah, basketball.
No.
Or life, whatever you're feeling.
No.
82, great year.
Yeah, 82 was a great year. I believe it was actually 87. He was seeing the ball like a melon. Anyway, it's not the point.
That's an inside joke for all you listeners.
Since we've...
The mystery to that inside joke will be solved episode 7. We're doing some deep continuity for the show.
Oh, jeez. Oh, boy. Oh, I don't think they've signed our contract on that long.
Yeah. We'll bring Black Panther in around podcast 9.
Yeah.
Ideally, Civil War will be phase 3 of the
setting
podcast.
the ball pretty high.
Yeah.
Wow. Setting the bar, pretty high. I think I said ball.
Yeah, I don't care.
I woke up this morning at like 6:35. That's the earliest I've had to wake up
Yeah.
in a long time.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, because you actually do
feeling,
work.
I'm feeling a little bit
Okay,
today.
you know what? We're going to save personal stories for the end, but let me just say, okay, this guy is actually accomplished. He has he does stuff. He commentates, he does interviews, he makes videos. I can't get a job. I have a job in New York 2 days of the week, but the rest of the week I'm
That's
literally
a cool
just
job.
yeah, it is
you
a
know,
cool
you
job.
have to admit,
I know,
that's a pretty
but at the
sweet
same
gig.
time, it doesn't feel good the rest of the week when you're just sitting around. Like today, I just started sending people Snapchats, for no reason, just me on my side, like selfie Snapchat. I don't even like Snapchat. And I'm just like, I got to do something. And then I got into a pretty long Facebook thing, message with someone about whether or not I should shave the arm hair because I'm like, I don't really have the build for this much arm hair. I'm not.
Does anybody
large
really
enough.
have the build for the amount of arm hair
If you're
that they
large,
have?
yes. But
I don't know.
and then I just realized they're at work and I'm just sitting here having the stupidest debate I've ever had in my entire I should just go sit outside on the grass and just think about stuff.
How did we get here? Are we?
Anyway, moving on.
We were talking about sports. Hey, speaking of sports, Stanley Cup. It's unfortunately been decided.
You know what? I'm good for San Jose for fighting hard. They gave it their all and they just came up short.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It was rough. I did not see the entirety of the last game. I'm gonna need to do some more in-depth research, but my initial thought when the words Sidney Crosby wins Conn Smythe Trophy.
You despise that man, don't you?
Listen, Sidney Crosby has been easily one of the best players in the league since he's entered it. And it's without a doubt. It goes without saying. But the man didn't score a goal in the Stanley Cup Finals. 6 games, he didn't score a goal. In the beginning of this playoffs, in the first round, everyone was wondering, where's Sidney Crosby? He hasn't scored a goal yet. And he continues to win, and he wins the Conn Smythe Trophy. I don't know whether
my
to
wonder
say...
My wonder is, was there any San Jose player in particular who really stood out, who could have won the MVP? Because that's like the MVP trophy equivalent, right?
It's the MVP, right.
I'm not familiar with all the names of all the awards.
The Conn Smythe is the MVP for the finals.
Because it was in a situation where you could make the argument that a San Jose player was more deserving, but they didn't want to give it to the losing team.
Well, I'll tell you what. You know who did have a great series, and I was reading a post from a friend of mine who lives out in the Bay Area. He's a big Sharks fan, super excited that the Sharks were in the series, or in the
Sharks are pretty cool. I can understand why he's a fan of them
in the Stanley Cup, the Stanley Cup Finals.
They're spooky though.
Martin Jones could possibly be the Sharks' goaltending answers, the answer for their goaltending for a couple years to come. Martin Jones in that Game 5 had 42 saves to keep the Sharks in the series, and as we know, unfortunately, they came up short in Game 6. But I think I remember a graphic correctly saying that it was the most saves ever by a goalie when his team is facing elimination in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That passes names, I believe, if my memory serves me correct, like Wah, who else was on that list? Some incredible names that he was surpassing there. And you know what? And I should probably stop talking because this graphic has completely escaped my mind. But the point is, Martin Jones, definitely quite the series for them.
I mean, unfortunately, I'm a little behind on my hockey news this year. As call me Black Panther because I don't care, but I mean just about this, the Penguins, not in general. I like hockey. But yeah, the idea that someone who didn't score a single goal, did he have that many assists? But even then, I'm like...
He had 2 assists in the final game.
But it's like, if you're the most valuable player, you have to be able to do it pretty much it all, right? Or you have to be, especially in hockey, football, it's like, well, how do you weigh a sack versus a lot of receiving yards? But hockey, everyone has the same stats. Anyone can theoretically, well, except I guess the goalie probably second.
And actually, excuse me, I was incorrect. He had 1 point in the win, 1 assist. He had 3 points in total in 6 games.
Are you serious?
Listen,
This really is a case they just picked the most famous person.
but I'm not sure that it is. And,
It's
and
legacy
you know that I don't
They want him
enjoy.
to have the best legacy possible.
You know that as a Philadelphia Flyers fan, I tend not to enjoy Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
As a general human being.
And as a Sabres fan, I'm waiting like 5 more years to get back into hockey.
But you know what? He from what I watched, there were a lot of intangibles that he had. He was hustling really well. He was getting the puck in deep, and he was winning a lot of faceoffs for them. He takes lots of faceoffs for the Penguins. And as you know, Carter, and maybe not our audience, but hockey, while I enjoy it, is definitely not one of my stronger sports to analyze. So at this point, I just have to say he's not my favorite, but congrats to him for winning the Conn Smythe.
Doing the Smash Brothers clap.
Yeah, the Smash
Brothers
the
clap.
Smash Brothers clap. Carter, your character's still clapping. You have to press start.
Oh, sorry.
Anyway.
Anything else to add on that topic?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, at this point, I'm just like, it stinks. I'm glad the Sharks got there.
Yeah.
Just have to wait another year for more hockey.
Yeah.
As they say in Canada. That's not how they say in Canada. We're going to cut to commercials real quick, but first a word from our sponsor, Crush Soda. Crush Soda. It's pretty good. We're also not sponsored by Crush.
You couldn't have said something like it crushes the competition,
no,
or it's.
It's
a crushing good time. Like
if any product actually ends up, if this ends up being big enough to ever get a sponsor, that's all I'm gonna say about it. It's good,
pretty good.
Yeah, it's subjective. I don't sell my soul that much. It's neutral. It's it's good.
All right.
Okay. Moving on. I guess the biggest story of the week in terms of our little spheres is the Electronic Entertainment Expo, or E3, as all the hipsters call it these days. Despite my...
Are there more hipsters than non-hipsters these days? Like they say the hipsters these days, and there are all these things. Anyway, this is
I understand what you're saying. It's like that.
This is not important.
It's like that thing where it's like, are they really the minority, like percentage-wise? We're going into slippery
have maybe the
here,
hipster trends become them anyway. This is
they haven't, and
this
we can't
is for
let
another time.
That we're building a wall. We're going to keep them in not Queens, Brooklyn. Queens, fortunately, hasn't been as gentrified yet. Yeah, we're going to build a wall. We're going to keep them out. We'll lose Brooklyn, which is a shame because there's a Mediterranean place I really love there. And there's also a really good pizza place there I also really like. And also, I have to go there sometimes. But you know what? It's a sacrifice we're going to have to make. Anyway, so I've managed to watch, I think, save for the PC game show, which I just refused to watch after last year's. I've managed to watch all of the big expos. Also, I haven't watched the Nintendo's, but that's for a very special reason. I actually am going to have an opportunity this coming Thursday to be one of the first 500 people to play The Legend of Zelda. I believe it is called Breath of the Wild, which it's going to take a while for that title to roll off the tongue. But at Nintendo, so yeah, as I mentioned, I go to New York pretty often, and there was this thing on last Saturday where the first 500 people in line at the store would get a little voucher, and they would be able to pick a time that they come in to play a guided demo of the game. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. Unfortunately, I didn't have a place to stay over to camp out, so I just stayed in my school library till 4 in the morning. Then I wandered outside, very paranoid of the environment.
P.S. Not 24 hours as advertised.
Yeah, it said 24 hours on the website. Apparently, they're dirty, stinky liars with smelly butts. And then I just ended up camping out in my freshman dorm because they have a nice little basement area. Then I walk up at 6 in the morning. There's already an 120-person line, but you know what? I still got the time I wanted, Thursday at 7. So I'm trying to avoid watching any gameplay so I can go in cold and, get to see it with my own eyes. And I'm really excited to give it a try, and I'll report back if it's any cool. But other than that, I've seen most of the, pretty much all of the stuff they've shown. Nick has watched a couple different things that I suggested. So you watched. Let's see. You saw Watchdog. Let's start Watch
Yeah,
Dogs.
Watch Dogs 2. I was saying to Carter, the first Watch Dogs, after playing it at a friend's house, was probably like my most, like the biggest impulse buy I have ever gone through with in my entire
Yeah,
life.
I remember you asking me about that. Like, hey, do you think this is worth getting? Because it looked really cool. And I'm like, yeah.
You know what? I thought it was really interesting, just the concept of
Yeah.
you having that, you controlling the destiny of your character, but being able to do really cool and maybe non-traditional stuff.
Yeah.
Like as far as hacking
Yeah.
into
I just love
electrical
the-
systems and stuff like that, and still being able to feel like you have that mission side if
Yeah.
you want to complete your missions, but you can also run around
Yeah,
doling
the
out
open world-
vigilante justice,
Like,
where you
I've
see
sort of
fit.
I've sort of gotten tired of open world games as of late because Ubisoft just makes so many of them, and it's all this like there's just too much stuff to do. Where I'm like, all right, I got to climb another tower, I gotta go do this until the map's clean. But I really loved the game, and we've played it a couple times together. I really loved the gameplay loop, especially just driving around looking for crimes to break up,
Yeah, that's
like
that's
dishing
probably
out
my
street
favorite part.
justice.
That's what I
just
said.
chasing people and beating them with the. Yeah.
It went.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the only big complaint, like, a lot of people ended up hating Watch Dogs, and we were talking about this, and it's just the hype circus around that game just got out of hand, because they sold it as, like, the next-gen game, the game that would define the next gen, and then they delayed it so many times, it was just inevitable that it was going to disappoint, and I feel like people, and to be fair, that was sort of self-inflicted, where, like, they downgraded the graphics a lot from the initial like reveals, like they were dishonest on what systems they were playing it on and stuff. But as someone who doesn't care as much about graphics, as long as the frame rate's fine and it doesn't make me physically sick, I was kind of like, all right, it's inevitable.
But the second one,
Yeah, looking at the second one, you know what? I know a lot of people are still being snarky, like, oh, how much is this real? If they're like, just based off the tone, I think it's going to be great. My biggest problem with the original was I didn't like the main character. He was too, like, angsty, the whole, like, oh, I have to avenge my dead family. Like, I'm so tired of that crap in video, especially video games. Media in general, but especially video games, because that stuff is, like, the nectar for them. Like, that's the 3-course meal for them, and I'm very tired of it. So just seeing, like, my understanding, the new guy, who I believe is named Marcus, he's, like, framed for a crime he didn't commit, so he decides to join up with these, like, this like hacking team who just like DedSec, yeah, who just
by the way, dead spelled without an A, because
of course, because
why not?
Because internet culture,
because vigilante internet culture.
But you know, it's just these guys who are effing with authority and like trolling people. Like if it's as trolly and fun, like the one trailer they showed is a little too much. We have to fight the establishment, man. But at the same time, they do it in this kind of tongue-in-cheek way of just messing with people. And I'm like, you know what? This, I think, is more representative of what hacking is. And above all, it just looks more fun. Like, these characters are having fun. And I might have fun if I play with them.
I mean, who wouldn't have fun when you're walking around, breaking into a senator's apartment complex, and you happen to have a quadcopter and a small robot that can apparently jump over
do
couches.
Impossible feats of physics. But, yeah. No, like that little demo they showed looked really fun. It looked interesting. It looks like they've elevated the gameplay.
Yeah,
that got me excited. I'm like, you know what, series, I'm willing to give you another chance. I think you might have figured it out on this one.
Yeah, just giving you, especially, I mean, the whole world, the whole game revolves around being able to hack into electrical systems, right?
It seems like they've taken that to a bigger
and you could do it in the first one, and it was cool. You could make traffic lights go out.
Yeah.
You could make things explode in the first one. But
there was a surprising amount of limits to it. Whereas this one, it seems like they've broken.
And this
some of those
one, you can,
limits.
instead of just unlocking doors, you can permanently lock doors.
Yeah.
And you
like
can
little things like that makes it feel more organic.
And it just makes you. There's just more options. Now to make the game even more of what you want it to be. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, my thing is, I don't mind. Like a lot of people want those like open-ended stories where you're given a lot of like, oh, do I do this or do that? I don't like. You can give me a perfectly linear story, but if you give me a lot of solutions to solve the same problem, I'll love that. I like the idea where you can stealth it. You don't even have to go into the building. You could go in guns blazing and just do it that way. Like, I love where they just give you a whole bunch of super organic, big tools in a very big sandbox and say, figure this out.
Yeah.
And that looks what the game is, and that really excites me.
Yeah, I think it's going to be cool.
Yeah. Another thing I